Hi guys, good luck tonight.
Tim, what were you thinking? 10 nights.
Well, to be perfectly honest, we didn't exactly know entirely what the experience was going to be. Basically, we were told it was going to be a 10-day immersive experience with the issue of homelessness. I mean, I kind of guessed that's probably something like what it would be, but they didn't really prepare it. You know, you couldn't really do any preparation. You didn't know what was coming. And it wasn't really until we arrived at a warehouse and you know, the host came out and basically told us that was what we were going to be doing. And then they proceeded to take our things like our watch and sunglasses and phones and wallets and, you know, everything off us. And then they took our clothes off us as well. So we were wearing, you know, like second-hand clothes that you might find in an op shop or something along those lines, and had a bit of a change of clothes and a sleeping bag and one of those red, white and blue nylon bags that you sometimes see at the airport. And then we were one by one dropped off around different parts of Melbourne and kind of stepped out of a coaster bus, and that was it.
The Melbourne winter?
In the Melbourne winter, yeah. So it's quite regularly about 6 degrees. I think there was a night there that was about 3, and it was raining most of the time.
That's not an easy question to answer, but how did you find the experience?
It was, I think probably the way to talk about it is, it's the best thing I've ever done in my life, but not because I enjoyed it, because I didn't enjoy it. It was incredibly challenging on so many levels, like the physical level. I mean, you have to carry your belongings everywhere. You know, you walk everywhere. Of course, sleeping on cardboard and concrete every night. You know, there was a lot of, you know, I was getting very sore in like my hips and my legs and things like that. But that was the physical part. But then there's also the mental part. Like I never imagined how hard it would be to live without a watch. You know, you wake up in the morning, you don't know what time it is, you don't know what, you know, when do I need to be somewhere to get food? When do I need to be somewhere to get, you know, any form of the other support services? It was very difficult from that point of view, but without a doubt, probably the most challenging part was, you know, once you kind of spent, I guess, the first day, and most of it was just survival, probably a little bit like you guys tonight. You know, you arrived and your first thought is, where am I going to sleep? You know, where's the best spot? You know, you think about where's the toilet, where am I going to get water, you know, where am I going to get food? And that was pretty much all I focused on, I guess, for the first day. But from that point on, and once you've taken care of those bare essentials, you know, you're meeting people and you're speaking to them, and you know, when you take a few moments, and obviously I had more than a few moments, but to really get to know people and I guess what they've experienced and what led them to where they are now, like it's heartbreaking, you know.
Was there one particular story or one particular person that really had an impact on you when you found out their story?
There was two.
Right.
So one was a transgender woman that I met in a church one morning having breakfast. Her name was Bellatrix, and I'll never forget her face. Like, she had just this beautiful smile, and it was just it was quite magnetic actually. And we got speaking, and I couldn't believe how open and honest she was willing to be with me, and we talked about where she slept the night before, and you know, whether she was on gear the night before, and she told, you know, me all about that and what she takes and what she normally takes and how she takes it and how often, and you know, then I asked the question about, you know, what, you know, how did you get here, kind of thing. And then she starts to share with me, and I still even get emotional talking about it now. Like, she starts to share with me that at the age of 2, her parents started to give her drugs, and goes through the story leading up until when 2 years prior to me meeting her, you know, she pulled back her jumper, and she showed me on her wrist where she tried to kill herself, and you know, you can't help but just be so impacted by. You know, a small child had to deal with that, you know. So that Bellatrix will forever, you know, be with me. Probably the most impactful though was a guy by the name of Adam, and you would have seen him on the preview. He was the guy that talked about he tried to kill himself. And Adam, at this point in the documentary, I was in crisis accommodation, and to begin with, you know, I guess a lot of the people in the crisis accommodation didn't a lot of them, not everyone, but a lot of them didn't really want to talk to me. They didn't know who I was. You know, was I a journalist? You know, I had camera crew following me around. Was I a actor? And of course, you know, not a lot of people that I guess are living in crisis accommodation want to have their faces on TV. You know, it's something that they probably would rather keep to themselves. But slowly over a couple of days, you know, I got to know people, and they realised I was someone that was willing to put myself in their shoes, so to see what I could learn, and so others could learn about it as well. And Adam initially didn't want to speak to me, but you know, he actually came up to me one day and said, "Hey Tim, I want to tell you a story." And we went and played a game of pool in the rec room, and we had a chat. And Adam's story was at the age of 4, he was molested. At the age of 8, his brother killed himself. At the age of 10, his dad killed himself. By the age of 12, he was on the streets, in and out of juvenile detention. Was a heroin junkie in his early teenage years, in and out of adult prison. And then 18 months prior to me meeting him, he put a pistol in his mouth and pulled the trigger, and for whatever reason, it didn't fire. And I think that was kind of a big turning point for him. He was like, I got to get my life sorted out. Managed to find his way into crisis accommodation. And, you know, the thing that'll always be left with me about Adam is, you know, he said to me, "Hey Tim, I really admire you for what you're doing." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, I'm a tourist. I'm here for 10 days. I get to go home." You know, like, I can't imagine. You know, and I'm sure many people have been the same, but, you know, I've been guilty of walking past people and not paying them any attention, you know, being on my phone or something like that. I've been guilty of seeing people and having that thought kind of like, "Oh, come on mate, why don't you like sort your life out, get a job," you know, those kind of thoughts. And I guess at best you probably put yourselves in the, you know, if it was me, you know, I'd be able to, I don't know, get myself off the streets. But you know, speaking with Adam, I guess I had that realisation that, you know, if I had had his life, I probably wouldn't be doing anywhere near as well as he's doing. Like the resilience, the bravery, the courage that, you know, he demonstrates to just still be there. I mean, I doubt I'd be alive. You know, and that was probably the biggest thing that I took away from, certainly from meeting the people. It's, you know, people that I probably, you know, had been guilty of looking down on. I walked away and, you know, they're the people I now look up to.
Yeah. Tonight we've got these great people. You're all sacrificing your time and your comfort to be here and do the right thing. But as a community, more broadly, what can we do to help the homelessness?
Look, I mean, well, clearly things like this. I mean, the one thing that I guess has really probably changed for me since participating in the experience, it was August, September last year, is now, and I don't every time, but now when I've got some time, I stop, you know, and I'll go and introduce myself. You know, and I guess now I know what to talk to them about. I know, you know, I'll ask, you know, "G'day mate, how you been? Like, you know, where are you sleeping? Are you safe? You know, you've got people that are with you. You know, typically if they're in a group, that can often be safer. You know, when was the last time you had a shower? Like, when, you know, have you been eating? Have you been staying off the gear? Been staying off the booze? You know, and I just have a chat to them. You know, have a conversation, spend 5 or 10 minutes, and I think for me that's probably the biggest thing. Another thing that we do as a business is, ever since I formed Infinite Wealth, we've always donated 10% of profits to charity. And you know, one of the things that I would like to see more and more business do is something similar. You know, the way that I view it is, I have the privilege of operating my business in the community. I'm part of the community, and I feel that I have kind of like a bit of a social contract that being part of the community, that I should be contributing to that community more than just paying taxes. Yeah. You know, so you know, I'd love for more and more businesses. I mean, obviously it's harder when you've got publicly listed companies and shareholders and boards and stuff like that, but you know, that's one of the great things about being private companies and small businesses. You know, as CEOs, you do what you want. You know, so you know, so yeah, I'd love for people to take on something similar to that. And of course, that doesn't necessarily need to be, you know, donating 10% of profits. It could be more experiences like this, or funding your staff to give back to the community as well. So I'd like to see more stuff like that.
And Tim, thanks for your time tonight and for coming along and sharing your story. We look forward to seeing you on SBS.
I really appreciate you guys having me here. Glad to have